Hey there, what's going on? I do believe I'm live, and I'd love to see some folks holler at me in the chat. I am going to be answering the Q&A from our recent My Mushroom Map. This was a pretty awesome workshop that Courtney and I did where we discussed three different topics broken down into 6 30 to 45 minute webinar workshops. Get some really good questions that came out of it. This workshop, this My Mushroom Map, will launch monthly. So it's a on-demand live launch kind of thing. You can find out more about it if you did not get to attend the first one by signing up for our email list at sanctuary.org. If you're not familiar with Sanctuary, we are a sacred mushroom church, but we're way more than that. We are a community of conscientious, caring people who are really supporting each other through life. The mushroom is obviously an important part of what we do, and our community and its organization provides constitutional protection for working with sacred mushrooms. But man, we are so much more than just mushrooms, although they are central to who we are as a community. All right. So, the first question or comment that we have here is most of these are anonymous, but someone said that they're looking forward to learning more about the RFRA. So, if you're not familiar, if you've never heard of the RFRA, that is the Religious Freedom and Restoration Act, and it is an extensive law bill that was signed into law in the 90s that we cover in depth in our trainings through Sanctuary. So if that's something that you are interested in learning about, then come check out Sanctuary. We have a number of training programs that we go through that help people empower people in their practice, and particularly centered, and some of that centers around understanding their religious constitutional protections and rights. Someone asks, SSRIs have not been around for thousands of years, as have psilocybin. Are there studies around this? There actually are. There is a recent study that came out a year ago, maybe 2 years at this point. It was the first of its kind that showed what we have known anecdotally for a very long time, that psilocybin is not what's the word I'm looking for? Contraindicated with SSRIs. There is the potential for SSRIs, and it's a significant potential for SSRIs to dampen the intensiveness or intensity of the experience, although that is not always the case. So I always recommend people to move into that space cautiously, because you may be surprised. I have absolutely worked with folks who have been on SSRIs for decades, and sometimes even a very highly sensitive response to the mushrooms. So, generally, yes, SSRIs dampen the intensity of the experience, but not always. That's important to note. I will go ahead and say here, just for public safety, that lithium is the only pharmaceutical that is contraindicated with psilocybin. 50% of the people who have taken lithium and I've also taken psilocybin had seizures. So there's definite reason for caution there. And I always advise people to be off of lithium for 4 or 6 weeks before they even consider microdosing. So, how does one determine dosage? Oh, that's such a good question, Leon. And Leon's going to be at our ceremony this weekend. So we'll get to have this conversation more in depth. There is I believe, a misconception, or I know it's a misconception. So, look, I've administered over 4,000 doses of psilocybin. I started the world's first psilocybin wellness retreat. I saw, as the research points out clearly, that the healing benefits, that the therapeutic effect is most often related to the mystical experience. And the more powerful of a mystical experience one has, and the more um, contextual your integration is, and I mean um, contextualized by community, embedded in a a community of people who actually work with these tools, then the longer lasting the therapeutic effects. So I feel extremely confident that the future of psilocybin is not as a mental health therapy, but as a spiritual technology that helps us achieve balance, which results in better mental health. Um, Now, the dosing and how we determine that, again, it's not it's not as it is often discussed in medical literature. There is this tendency, as with all um, pharmaceuticals, chemical compounds, to designate it in a kilogram, gram, gram per kilogram basis, and that is not how this works. I even saw a conversation on LinkedIn today talking about the known um, tolerance that builds up with psilocybin, and that is not the truth either. If you work with psilocybin day after day, then you will experience a tolerance buildup, but it actually has a reverse tolerance as you work with these compounds longitudinally. If you can imagine, it's like um, there's these pathways in our brain, which is a very simplistic understanding. This is a full body, full being experience. Um, and as our awareness expands, it takes less to get to the same place as time goes on. So the dose is so dependent on the individual. There's so many factors when I'm working with someone and I'm assigning or helping them determine their dose, because I don't want to tell anybody what to do. I want you to figure it out what is right for you. And then my job is to support you through that process. And so what I do is I provide feedback based on things like how sensitive they are to typical medications or even alcohol, cannabis. I consider in the immediate circumstance what they've eaten, what their emotional disposition is, how susceptible or receptive are they to just generally expanded states? Do they practice breath work? Do they have a yoga practice? Are they already deeply spiritual? All those things go into consideration when assessing how open someone basically is to this experience. Because what we find, and this is a very interesting phenomenological aspect that it will be interesting to see how science breaks this down. But having seen it time and time again, experienced it myself, that you can resist the experience, and that resistance can be subconscious. You think you're giving yourself over to it, and often you're not. But the more you can just let go into the experience, then the more powerful it will be, the more you will actually feel the effects. So, our mind, and even beyond mind, our awareness, our consciousness is so powerful. And that is what we're actually working with here, consciousness. Consciousness is, I believe, and what we're seeming to understand more and more is that consciousness is fundamental, that there is only information and awareness of information, and that globally experienced is God. I mean, like globally, like all encompassing, universally experienced is God. All right. So dosing, not an easy one to do. There are some generalities that you can speak to here, and we talk about this more extensively in our trainings as well. I don't want to go into the full breakdown, but like even Terrence McKenna, there's this notion of a heroic dose, right? Where 5 grams is a heroic dose. 5 grams is pretty hefty for most people. And for some people, it's a microdose. Honestly, I've seen people who take 20 grams before they actually get into um, real deep territory, not even real deep territory. I worked with an amazing human being who had incredible resistance due to trauma, due to, very challenging life circumstances. And it literally took her 20 grams before she could start to um, let go and break through. So it is so subjective and so variable, and it depends on so many different factors. All right. First came to psilocybin years ago, microdosing, etc. Naturally especially interested in the relationship of Steiner's spiritual science. Ooh, this is Jeffrey is after man after my heart. We got some Steiner right here. Rudolf Steiner, How to Know the Higher World. So this this literature, this teaching will be invaluable to psychedelic studies as they advance. Rudolf Steiner was a spiritual scientist. Rudolf Steiner was a um, the founder of anthroposophy. He was a kind of a classic scientist for most of his life, although I want to say in secret, but he just kind of kept it to himself. Had mystical experiences that were not induced by any compound or whatever. Um, and he developed a scientific protocol for studying these other worlds, for studying these other entities. And it has helped to inform my practice in a way that I have been so thankful for. I will say that. Um, it really deserves an independent study. It really deserves this topic, this question really deserves a deep dive. Um, there is there is another world that we are embedded in, and we are coming to understand that that is what the shamanic world has been, our shamanic practices have been telling us for millennia, that these compounds, these plants, are tools, sacraments as we speak to them, that help us access other worlds. And this is difficult for a lot of people to comprehend, understandably so. Um, for the most part, religion has been um, kind of has become this. It's a practice. It's not an experience, and we can experience divinity. We can experience divine realms, other worlds, other lives, other lifetimes. And Steiner does an amazing job of speaking to that in a very scientific, pragmatic way. So there's a lot of material to explore there. And that book in particular, How to Know Higher Worlds, has been invaluable to me. Another question about SSRIs and psilocybin, we've already answered that. As far as this goes into the legal questions, so the first workshop was um, just day one, intro to your rights and this mushrooms as a sacrament. Day two was safe, legal, and sovereign, where we went over more details um, about the legal rights and the RFRA. Someone asked if you keep your safe box refrigerated, because um, there is a protocol for storing of sacrament that is in alignment with DEA scheduled substances. And we talk about that. And yes, there are times when I have definitely kept a locked safe inside of a locked freezer, inside of a locked room. That's a three-stage lock process. Let's see. Is access to the community gated until the completion of all courses? This is anonymous, but no, the answer to that is no. You can be a member of Psanctuary and have access to the community without completing our courses. There is a monthly minimum donation to be a part of the community, and it is well worth it. We have an amazing community of incredible people from all around the country, but you do not have to take the courses to be a member of the community. Are there any members of Sanctuary that have some kind of an individual declaration? That's a really interesting question. There actually are some people who have written up their kind of um, philosophy around working with the mushroom. It's not something that we require. Um, you don't, no religion demands that you walk around with some in your pocket of some declaration of faith. That is kind of umbrellaed by our organizational declaration of faith. So individual members are covered with that, but you are absolutely welcomed, and we do encourage people to really delineate what their own relationship with the mushroom is. on the verge of publishing a mushroom manifesto. I've got about a 150-page book or so that I'll be publishing within the next, ideally, 6 months. Looking to have that out by September at the latest. So if you're interested, keep a lookout for that. Then we move into workshop number 3, inside the journey. So this is where we actually talk about the phenomenology. And these are some interesting questions. I'd like to explore my daily nicotine and caffeine addictions inside ceremony. Should I fast from them in a lead up to the ceremony? Wow, that's a great question. Um, my answer would be not necessarily. Could it be helpful? Yes. It also could be helpful to just dive into your addiction. I've seen that where you know, you just let yourself go, drink a bunch of coffee, smoke a bunch of cigarettes, and then go eat mushrooms and feel why it's not good for you. They will show you very often. And fasting from them can be helpful, although that's often the hard thing to do, right? So you may not be able to really effectively fast from those things if it's an addiction. So, that's something that I really like to leave the details of your experience up to you. There are suggestions that I might make and talk about kind of some of the what ifs, but there's not necessarily a right way to do this. Um, I'm not sure what that question means. I am as what? What is the natural state? Hmm, I am. It's a very powerful statement, though I will say that. I am. What do you say after that? When you say I am, what follows? Because it's really, really important. What support is there for women who have undergone abortions and regret it? Ooh, anonymous question. We don't have any really have necessarily specific support for that in Sanctuary. It reminds me of a particular ceremony that I held once where there were, I don't know, 15 or so people there. And at the end of it, there were 3 women who did not know this about each other, but all of them in that ceremony were visited by their aborted children who told them it's okay. You don't have to feel guilt or shame. And when they all revealed that separately in their integration experience with the group, everybody cried. Everybody cried. One woman shared it, and then another woman shared. And then another woman who was just like bawling couldn't help but share immediately. It was so profound, and it just really speaks to the spiritual nature of this experience. I have seen so many miraculous, mystical, otherworldly things happen. So, therapist out there, when you come up against that stuff, you can reach out to me, and I'll be happy to provide some support. I'd love something like a list of the variety of different experiences that people have. Boy, oh boy. Long um, I've been studying this for a long time. I'm like 27 years into working with mushrooms, 13 years professionally, like in the public eye. And there certainly does seem to be kind of a carousel of experiences, but it is extremely wide, broad, nuanced, varied. This is something that I have been curious about for years. Is there a way to catalog these experiences, categorize them? I suspect that there is, and I suspect that cultures who are no longer with us have done that. It is something that it's been on my mind, but it's like the tremors. There's an experience of tremoring, and that is not uncommon, but there are different kinds of tremors. There are experiences of nausea that are different kinds of nausea. That subject alone, people kind of say that this is why nausea happens within the mushroom state. And I can say there's at least 3 different types of nausea that I have witnessed and worked through and experienced myself. So um, this is something that I'm interested in putting a little more time and energy into this as the space allows. What does energetic processing entail? This is a question based on the chapter of energetic processing, or the workshop there specifically. We speak of that. It's a chapter in the study that we do as a community, but it is just a portion that we speak of in the workshop number 3. And Energetic processing, I like to just think of it in terms of we are all energy. All of the life experience, all of our it's all just energy. We are all taking in information, which is like packets of energy. Photons are like little packets of information. And our trauma, our past history, all of that is stored in us. And so energetic processing as I experience it and interpret it, and describe it, is um, offloading of that blocked, stuck energy and information. So it can look like a lot of different things, and that's where this catalog of experiences comes in. Um, Qigong, so Rudolf Steiner and Qigong, those are the two schools of thought. Anthroposophy and Qigong are the two schools of thought that have most effectively informed my experience in working with the mushrooms. There are very few schools of thought that really can describe some of the phenomenology that occurs, and it is very difficult to put into words, if not altogether impossible. But Mantak Chia, love that guy. He's one of my favorite Qigong teachers. His book, which I think yep, also have it here. This is not a book for the newly initiated. Awaken Healing Energy Through the Tao. There were some things that started to happen to me in my practice that were like physiological things, and I was worried about it. I was like, this is happening every time I eat mushrooms. And during that time, when was running the retreats, I was eating mushrooms a lot, and I didn't know what to do with what was happening. It was quite concerning, and I googled some of the stuff that I was experiencing and came across his book, and it was uh, a lifesaver, honestly. So where'd that question go? Um, so yeah, that helped me understand energetic processing and kind of again back to this kind of catalog of experiences. Um, what is the source of love? Love itself. The ineffable. Love is love. Yeah, that's a great question, Jeffrey. Not sure I have an answer to that one. And that looks like all the questions that we have here. Um, let's see. Point of fact, you can't jump into to the deep end a little bit. You're right. I said that. You can jump into the deep end just a little bit. You can jump in and out and dip your toes in the deep end. Anyway, you'd have to witness the workshop to understand that one. And I'm not sure how to answer this question. I don't know what types of support, mentorship, or practices there are. Also, I don't know what it means to be in relationship with the material presented. I don't know what the right answer is to this question or how to begin to ask it. Yeah. Well, relationships are highly individualistic. What is your relationship with nature? What's your relationship with your children? What's your relationship with your pets? What's your relationship with the mushroom? That's very subjective, and not really no one can answer that question for you. In terms of what types of support and mentorship are available, well, Sanctuary as a community is a peer support model. So we have quite a few pretty experienced practitioners who are there and available and ongoing support for each other. And that is really the beauty of our community. I do offer private mentorship. It's, Sanctuary is a very affordable and accessible model. To work with me privately is a little different than that. But that's something we can explore if you want to. And practices, what kind of practices there are? There are so many ways to practice with the mushroom. Microdosing is one that is very often referred to. We speak to that and as subtle sacrament work within Sanctuary, and our subtle sacrament protocol goes from 0.10, the standard microdose, all the way up to 1 gram. Um, there are so many ways to work with this sacrament. It is really up to intentionality. intensity, whether it's a solo practice or a communal practice. There's a lot of different factors that can shape your practice, and that's really what we seek to support and encourage is people finding their way to have a relationship with this sacrament, a relationship with their own spirit, a relationship with what they understand as the higher power. Nobody in sanctuary is going to tell you how to engage with your understanding of the divine. Nobody understands it, right? It's like consciousness trying to understand itself. You can't. And so we are all kind of feeling around in the dark together. We can know much more than we give ourselves credit for. We can achieve some pretty amazing and significant states of awareness and ability. But as long as we're in these 3D bodies, I suppose there will always be limitations. And that's a good thing. The mystery is, well, the mystery is where it's at. And that's why the mushroom is my preferred sacrament because after 27 years, no matter how many times I've consumed sacred mushrooms, it still remains a mystery. I continue to learn. We're having a ceremony coming up this weekend, and I am excited for what I'm going to learn. The last ceremony we did, group ceremony in October, 4,000 doses, and I experienced something that I've never encountered before. So that is the beauty and the majesty and the mystery of this work. So if that's something that interests you, then I invite you to come check out Psanctuary and what we're doing. We are not just a mushroom church. I mean, we are very much a mushroom church. The mushroom is central to who we are, and that is why we are constitutionally protected. And there's so much more to uncover. The mushroom gives us a little glimpse into who we really are. And the greatest joy is experiencing that and then encountering it in, with, and through others. At least that's my greatest joy. So thank you for joining me. I hope this has answered the questions of everyone that submitted them. If you are interested in the next round of the mushroom map, then sign up for the email list and you'll get notified on that. It is a donation-based workshop. We do ask that you contribute a little bit because there's quite a bit of information and a lot of experience that has gone into it. Hope to see you around Psanctuary if I don't already. And if I do, well, I look forward to seeing you there. All right. Thanks.